Hi, everyone. Thanks for being patient. And I would like to welcome you to the Sparks Talks webinar series today. The Sparks Talks series is part of the Light a Spark campaign by Girls Action Foundation. I'm Elvira Trulia, the Communications Manager and Web Producer for Girls Action. And in a couple of minutes, I will be introducing you to today's presenter, Munira Ravji, who will be sharing her tools and experiences around social entrepreneurship. So if you've already participated in a Girls Action webinar, welcome back. And for those of you who are joining for the first time, I do want to take a couple of minutes to briefly introduce you to Girls Action Foundation. So Girls Action Foundation is a national nonprofit that works to empower girls. We're based in Montreal, where we run local programs for girls, and we work with some 300 partners who run similar types of programs in their communities across Canada. Some of our activities include leadership training, networking events, and other kinds of projects that bring together girls and young women, and also projects for women who run programs for girls. In terms of impact, nationally, we reach around 60,000 girls and young women located in northern, rural, and urban communities across the country. And our programs concern themes such as sexual health, violence prevention, media literacy, and leadership. So just before inviting Munira to join the presentation, I do just want to put it into context. I introduced it as a Sparks Talks webinar series. This was part of, the Sparks Talks was part of the Light a Spark campaign that we launched in 2011. It was a campaign to mobilize women role models across the country, and 60 women role models joined the campaign at the time and got involved in different ways, such as writing blogs, doing webinars, and organizing events. And we're continuing that campaign through our Sparks Talks webinar series, as well as other events that we run throughout the year. So Munira, who we consider to be an inspiring women role model, is here today as a spark. We invited her as a spark. So I do want to take you through very briefly what we're going to be doing today. So here's the agenda on your screens. We're in the introduction right now. I'm going to be presenting Munira, and then Munira is going to give her presentation. And after her presentation is when we begin the Q&A session. And then we're going to close things off. So to give you a little bit of an orientation to the webinar process, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, you'll see a number of slides that will be changing throughout the presentation. And there's also a series of information panels on the right-hand side of your screen. Each panel has a unique icon, and that's located in the menu tab on the top right-hand side of your screen. You should also see on that side of your screen a chat panel, and that should already be open. So I would like to invite you to use the chat panel to communicate with me if you have any technical issues during the presentation, and I will help you troubleshoot as best I can. Or if I can't help you via the chat box, we'll give you the phone number where you can call Cisco WebEx, and hopefully they'll be able to help you resolve the tech issue. So also, I want to mention that there's another information panel, which is the Q&A panel. And that one has a question mark icon beside it, and that also should be visible to you. And that's the one that you can use to send me your questions related to the presentation. And I would like to also say that you can send your questions whenever you choose at any point during the presentation. I'm going to be moderating the Q&A, and so that means I'll be reading the questions to Munira during the Q&A session. That will begin right after the presentation. I do also want to note that today's session is being recorded, including the Q&A session, and the entire webinar podcast will be available online in the next couple of weeks, and I'll send everybody a link to that recording. On the last tech note is that when you do want to send a question to me, either through the chat or through the Q&A, you'll see that there's an option of who you can send a question to in the Send To box. So just click on my name, and then you'll be sending a private message to me. So this is the part when I have the pleasure of introducing today's presenter, who is Munira Ravji. And she's going to be talking a lot more about her experience, but I just would like to briefly introduce her. So Munira says that she's always been passionate about community work and empowering others, and she's applied that passion to start her own business as a project management consultant, and she has worked with many community organizations, not-for-profits, and artists. She started out as a volunteer for many groups, and Munira eventually gained 12 years' experience in the private, public, and not-for-profit sectors. She's worked in the areas of communications, community development, marketing, partnerships, social media, strategic planning, research, fundraising, publicity, and events. Lots of stuff. Munira has worked with organizations and corporations across Canada, most notably in her hometown, Toronto, where she is now based. She has facilitated many workshops for young people on themes like civic engagement, becoming an entrepreneur, and working with the media. So with that, I'd like to welcome Munira to today's webinar presentation and also pass things on to her. Welcome, Munira.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that great introduction, Elvira, and thank you also to not only our attendees of this webinar, but to Girls Action for giving me the platform to speak a little bit more about my passions. So today's topic is around social entrepreneurship, looking at how you can follow your passion, give back to your community, and make a living all at the same time. I think there was a time when that was a crazy idea, but it's starting to become the norm as businesses are becoming more concerned about their communities and their environments, and small businesses are actually leading in Canada as the #1 new growth of economic development. So I am assuming and hoping that you're all part of that growth, and I'd like to today not just talk about social entrepreneurship as a definition, because I'm sure you've heard a lot about it. There's so many different opinions, and there's so many different ways of defining social entrepreneurship. But today is really about a real-life example, and that's just talking about some of my experiences as a social entrepreneur. Actually didn't start out to become one. I think I just fell into that definition very organically. So before I continue, I just wanted to let everyone know that we're going to be sending through a series of polling questions. We really hope that you can all participate in these polling questions so we can learn a little bit more about you, but also it'll help me throughout the presentation to maybe give you some more relevant insight depending on who's actually listening in on today. So our first polling question is, do you currently work for a nonprofit community or community organization? The polling questions will be up for about 2 minutes, so please answer if you get a chance. So I'm going to start by telling you just a little bit about myself. My background and upbringing definitely launched me into entrepreneurship. So my family and I migrated to Canada in the 1980s. I was really young. Both of my parents are professionals, skilled immigrants, I would say, coming to Canada, but faced a lot of barriers to employment. That being about 30 years ago, I'm totally aging myself, individuals coming into Canada really had a hard time finding employment in their fields, as they do now, but even back then it was a little bit tougher. So my parents, in order to survive, realized that they needed to build a niche for themselves and really carve out their own career path, make their own opportunities. So my dad, as a pharmacist, really inspired me because he started his own business as a relief pharmacist. So he would travel all across Ontario, visiting pharmacies that needed on-the-spot help or staffing. And he did this for many years. My mom is a very talented, creative woman and decided to take her skills as a seamstress and start her own business working for individuals in the community that needed that type of work done. So I grew up in an entrepreneurial household for sure, and I think that that's what sparked my interest, but it also became very normal for me to kind of take a hold of the things that I was good at and find a way of either contributing to the household or contributing to any part of my network that needed that. And I can say that I started my own business quite early. My father actually ended up opening up his own pharmacy, which I absolutely grew up in. I was there every day. And I used to make little things, and his customers would comment on them saying they were so cute and they'd like to take one. And one day he said, you know, why don't I rent you a little space in my pharmacy and you can display all your products and sell them. So some of these products got sold. I don't know who they got sold to. I was very good at paying rent for that little space, and I know my father was a big supporter of that. I also started giving facials and doing little homemade remedies, and he was a big supporter of that. He was probably my first customer. So just to let you know, having that kind of support and background really launched me into that kind of entrepreneurial mindset and spirit. As I grew older, I actually decided to go to school in Montreal. And when I was done school, I was ready to work. I just finished PR school. But the only challenge, major challenge that I faced was that I didn't speak French. So being a communications professional in Quebec without French, you definitely are facing some barriers to employment. But at that time, I was lucky enough to land an internship, a part-time internship with a community organization in Little Burgundy. And as I started working there, another non-for-profit had contacted the organization and said they needed some urgent help. They needed a grant writer that could just come in and write a grant for them on a very short-term basis, and they were pretty desperate. So my boss at the time approached me and said, you know, would you like to take this on as a freelance project? And she also coached me around becoming a freelancer, registering my name as a business so that I could actually qualify for some tax benefits as a sole proprietor. And from there, I took on that first contract, and I realized that a lot of organizations, especially not-for-profit organizations, maybe didn't have the funding to hire people full-time in the areas of marketing and communications, and often didn't have the expertise. These are kind of products and services that are extra or luxurious to a nonprofit at times. They're really trying to get their work done, so they might not have the funding to hire someone full-time. So that's actually how I started my freelance business and found a niche for myself, offering services to organizations that needed a little bit of mentoring and project management around projects that they were interested in implementing but didn't know how to. Projects that needed to be done very quickly with a quick turnaround time, and projects that couldn't afford someone who would be hired in-house. So that's really how I built my reputation in those three areas and started promoting myself as a freelancer in that way. And how I actually started to...
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make a link to the fact that the polling, the first polling question has closed, and so the results on the screen. Hopefully you can see that. Interestingly, most of the people attending today actually currently work for a nonprofit or community organization. 9 out of 13 are attending today. Do you see
Amazing.
that?
And that's actually, that's great, because I think individuals who work in that field are really best positioned to do this type of, take on these types of entrepreneurial roles as well. So that's great to see these individuals in the crowd. Just building on that, I think that being a social entrepreneur means that, again, you're aware of these issues and maybe some of the needs that are existing in the sector, and you can focus on the issues and organizations that you're passionate about. So that's exactly what I'm doing as well. So a lot of people have been talking for years now about what is a social entrepreneur, what is social entrepreneurship, and I don't think there is one standard definition. It's something that you kind of have to decide for yourself how you fit into the spectrum of things. There are individuals who have businesses that work directly on issues, maybe provide solutions or products that address certain societal needs. There are other organizations that are addressing systemic issues that are maybe more around policy or consultation. And then there are organizations that are just really focused on their environmental footprint. So maybe having a cafe that works only with local producers, or having a retail outlet that hires individuals that are facing barriers to employment. So there's a full spectrum of definitions out there, but there's two that I really relate to, that I found that really fit well and encompass what a social entrepreneur is. Now, before I go through this, I wanted to mention there's another polling question up, and that's just wanting to know, what stage are you in your social enterprise journey? So please feel free to answer that, and we will continue. So in terms of Ashoka Canada, so Ashoka Canada is a global association of the world's leading social entrepreneurs. In fact, the founder of Girls Action Foundation and the past executive director, Tatiana Fraser, is an Ashoka Fellow. So definitely check out that website if you're interested in becoming a social entrepreneur, or if you already are an entrepreneur and you'd like to apply to be a fellow. And their definition is, a social entrepreneur is an individual who applies business and management skills to tackle chronic societal problems with sustainable solutions. So I would say that that's probably the fundamental description of a social entrepreneur. But I also came across a book that's just come out called Rippling, and I came across also a review of the book and a great quote as to what this individual, Sarah Fraser, believes that social entrepreneurship is. And she says, social entrepreneurs work on societal problems. They push against the norms of societies, governments, and organizations. They develop unique solutions because they have to. Social entrepreneurs are not the stuff of organizational employees. They are focused individuals who operate outside of their regular structures to make change happen. They speak up, point out, and are unafraid to plow at what at times is a lonely furrow. So why I really relate to that quote is, sometimes for me, I find that being a social entrepreneur actually does mean that I'm an activist. It helps me to advance, causes and ethical things that I think are really important to me. And I've been faced with these types of situations in my career quite often. And what's great about being in business for yourself is you can really decide what projects you want to take on, what kind of social causes you want to advance. So I'll give you an example. I was offered a project to run an event, run the sponsorship and marketing for an event that was actually fundamentally homophobic. And when I discovered that, I was able to say no to that. And of course, I lost business because of it, but I was able to really stand up for my beliefs and take action against something that I didn't believe in. So, working for yourself gives you that opportunity. Now, moving forward, before we continue to the next slide, I just wanted to highlight our polling question. So what stage are you in your social enterprise journey? Looks like most of the people in this room have a good idea that they want to explore. We have 38% of you. And for the rest of the questions, we have 15% in each category around some people are actually starting out and working towards launching their business. Some have already started their business and would like to help it grow. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the ways that we can address all of these different journeys as we're moving along. Now, we found out a little bit about you from the polling question, but I also want to just talk to you guys about who you are as an individual and what characteristics really portray a social entrepreneur. I would say that if you're a social entrepreneur, it means that you have passion, you're excited about something, or you feel the need to be involved or contribute to social change in some way. Your business, your product or service has some type of a social impact. So what you're doing is actually not only creating, giving you a career path, but it's also giving back to society at the same time. So this is something that is often referred to as the double or triple bottom line. It's where you're doing something that's good for you, good for the community, and possibly good for the organization or your own organization as well. And lastly, you're making a revenue from this. So I think back in the day we would think, you know, I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart. I don't deserve to get paid for that. I think that's a totally old way of thinking. This is a new kind of model of business and enterprise is really having that double or triple bottom line as part of your business acumen and of a business description. The next question is coming up, the polling question, and that's, what is the most important attribute of being an entrepreneur? Is it having expertise, having a network, passion, capital, risk tolerance, or other? So we'd like you to answer that question. And as we're waiting for you to answer, I'm just going to talk to you about some of these qualities. So skills and attributes needed to be an entrepreneur, and these are coming very personally from me, things that I've felt that I've had to have in order to be successful. So first of all, I'd say persistence. I've been running my business for about 7 years now, sometimes full-time, sometimes part-time, but there's always a period where I'm thinking, is anyone going to hire me? Is anyone going to be interested in this service? And I think if you keep knocking on enough doors, you're eventually going to come across someone who really needs that innovative thinking on their team or as part of a project, so keep it going. Risk aversion. Being your own business owner means taking a huge risk. It often means investing time and money into things that you can't always control, and ideas that might work or might not work. So you have to be ready for the ups and downs of owning your own business. You're definitely taking a chance, but it could become very fruitful in the end. Customer service skills are extremely important. When you are running your own business, it's not just about the work that you're doing and the services that you're providing. It's really about how you're dealing with your clients and what they're going to say about you when that project is done. Are you someone that is difficult to work with? Are you someone that they felt like they couldn't work on this project without? I'll highlight how important this is. One thing about me is I've really tried to keep my costs down in my business, and that's another reason why I've been so sustainable. And haven't actually invested in a website. I know that's probably a big no-no, and I shouldn't be telling you guys this, but being a publicist and a writer, it's almost like cutting my own hair to write my own website. But one of the other reasons I haven't actually had to invest in something like that is because I've had a lot of referral business, and that means that the clients that I've worked with have been so happy with my service that they've either been repeat clients, so every year they call me again to do something else for them, or they refer me to someone else. I get a lot of recommendations, and I think at the end of the day, that's just as important as letting people know you're out there, is having the right people let other people know that you're out there too. And lastly, organizational skills. I have to say that your time management skills are going to be extremely important. How you organize your finances are going to be extremely important. So it's not just about the money that you have, the resources that you have, and the clients that you have. It's really about how you're running your business and how you're managing your day-to-day in that business. So I'm just going to wait for the polling question to come up, but we'll move on to the next slide.
Oh, here they are. The results are there.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. Aha, this is what I suspected, and I think you're going to see this a lot when you read about becoming an entrepreneur. Probably the #1 attribute that you should have as an entrepreneur or a social entrepreneur is passion. Our attendees are saying 69% of you believe that this is #1. Next would be risk tolerance, which I agree is very important. We also had expertise, having a network, and capital is following in, and other is following as the next kind of important attribute. So definitely passion. It's the thing that's going to get you to rise early, stay up late. It keeps you going. It's extremely important. If you're not excited about what you're doing, it's going to show and people are going to notice. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now, being a social enterprise has one really great characteristic, and that's that you're built to address societal problems or contribute to a cause that you're passionate about. But at the end of the day, it's still a business. And when you're deciding to take on the role of an entrepreneur, your plan is extremely important before you even start. So I know quite a few of you said that you have a great idea and you're just beginning your journey. And I'm just going to give you an insider tip. Probably the #1 tool in your toolkit is your plan. So here are some questions that you might want to ask yourself before getting full-fledged into a business, and that's the feasibility of this business. Can it work? Will it work? So what is your product or service? Can you define this product or service? And who is the audience that you're trying to sell this product or service to? Who's your customer? How many people will buy it? So is this a product or service that's in demand, or is it something that's very unique that, you know, maybe it might not sell? How will you sell it? What's your marketing strategy? How are you going to get people to know about this product? Is it something that you can market? How much will it cost to get started? What are your startup costs? And this will kind of address what you need in terms of resources. How much will it cost to operate, your operating costs? So just in terms of my own example, I actually had a business, an office. When I first moved to Toronto, I brought my business back to Toronto, and I started off as just an event planning business, but I started getting a lot of contracts around strategic planning, grant writing, that type of thing. So I decided to embed myself in an office where I was surrounded by other community organizations, and at that time it was the Manifesto Studio Lofts, and I outweighed the rent was actually worthwhile. It was almost like a marketing strategy for me to be embedded in that location, because organizations would just see me and come directly to me, and they would talk amongst themselves and realize that I probably had the services that they needed. So even though I did have the overhead cost of renting an office space, it actually worked itself out because it attracted more clients. Now moving down the road, my business went part-time, and I realized I couldn't manage all the demand, and also it was expensive. So I was able to move back home and have a home office. So one thing you really want to be very conscious of are your overhead costs. How much does it cost for you to actually have your business, and is it worthwhile? Is it worthwhile to spend that money? Number 7 is a really important strategy, and it's something that people struggle with quite often: your sales price. Your sales price is not just about how much you're going to make per hour per contract, but it's really telling your audience, you know, this is something you can afford. This is something of value. It's telling your audience a lot of things. So I think it's really important to get your sales price correct right off the bat. When I started, I decided to set my sales price for, depending on what I would see out there if I was to be hired as an event planner, what I would be making working for someone else, and I pretty much doubled it, considering that I had overhead costs and that type of thing. What I would suggest is doing your research, connecting with other consultants or other business owners, maybe mentors that can give you some really good advice in this area. It's a very important place to invest some time and research into. What are the legal requirements? Now, you're in business on your own, so you are liable, and you have to be really careful. So, for example, if I'm doing an event, I have to make sure that the venue has liability insurance, because otherwise that could possibly fall on me, even having an office, or maybe you have a contract where, you know, something goes wrong. So it's really good to just have an idea of what kind of legalities are associated with your type of business, and make sure that you've covered your bases with them. And lastly, last 2 questions, how will your organization operate? Who will manage it? Is it going to be you? Are you going to have staff? Something to think about right away. I know in the beginning, I started off by myself, and it was fine, but then I realized I was getting more and more projects and taking on bigger projects, and I needed more manpower. So then I had to put together kind of a hiring strategy and all of these things. So great things to know before you actually get into busy periods, because you want to be prepared. And lastly, what are the major risks? So are these risks that you can handle? Are they risks that you can address easily or even with some support, or are they just risks that are going to shut down your business? So really important things to know, and I got these questions for the Enterprising Nonprofits website. I've listed the link for you, so you can take a look at that website to get more information. And before we move on to the next slide, I'm going to put it back to you guys again and ask you another polling question. And that polling question is, what is the most important attribute of being an entrepreneur? Do you think it's about having expertise, having a network, passion, capital, risk tolerance, other? I'm not sure. Oh, we've already done that one.
Yeah, we did that one.
Oh, sorry. It just came up as another polling. I thought it sounded familiar. We won't ask it again because I'm sure you guys will have the same answer. So, Elvira, I'll leave that to you. I'm not sure what the next polling question is. Following along with planning. So the feasibility plan and checklist that I kind of gave you guys is really about deciding, is this going to work right off the bat? So I know, like we said, a majority of you said, I have an idea, I'd like to explore it. We'll start with the feasibility plan. And if you get to a point where you're thinking, yeah, this is actually going to work, I think I can do this. Another very, very important tool to have in your toolkit is the official business plan. Now, I can say this isn't something that you can write overnight. It takes a really long time. It takes an investment of time and research. But if you can actually commit to writing this out, it's going to come in handy when you're thinking about marketing, when you're thinking about defining your business, when you're thinking about maybe applying for a loan. It's really great to have a business plan handy. But again, not every entrepreneur has a business plan set out. So I wanted to give you the highlights of what a business plan looks like, just so they're things that you can think about. You know, you're going to want to know what your business description is, what industry and competition are you facing, who's your customer, what's your marketing plan. So these are things that you want to think about. Again, your operations, your management, your legal requirements, they're all things that were in your feasibility kind of checklist, but now you're actually putting pen to paper and saying, this is how I'm actually going to do it. And I'm going to just give you a little sideline about being a social entrepreneur. Because this area, even though it's so impactful and the outcomes have been great, it's still a business model that's up in the air, and it might not be fully recognized by a lot of the traditional institutions. So there is a bit of a bias out there around social entrepreneurs and social enterprise saying maybe they don't have the same business acumen, or they might not have the same skills and attributes as, you know, someone who's gone through business school. And I don't want that to deter you in any way, but I do want you to know that you're a bit on your toes, and you might have to work a little bit harder to prove yourself. And I think your best ammunition to do that is really to be organized and to be able to answer all these types of questions. It gives you confidence in the work that you're doing, but it also gives others the confidence in investing in you. So before we move on, I'm going to go to the next polling question. So this is, what tool do you think you need most in developing for your social enterprise? I'm going to talk a little bit later about what these tools are in your toolkit and what's important about them, but we'll just go to the poll. So we had social media, elevator speech, accounting process, price for services, research and expertise, and mentors. The number one answer amongst you guys was social media. That's really an important tool to use. Next up, we had your elevator speech, your price for services, and then we had others. So I think marketing seems like a big important tool from your perception on your end. Now, before we talk about some of these tools, I know we're all at different stages, as we mentioned. These are a few websites or resources that I've actually consulted with around either, you know, getting some resources about structure or putting together human resources, getting my ideas out in the public, or maybe implementing them, finding out what a social enterprise business model could be. So I would suggest for you guys to check out these resources and actually use them in developing your business plan. And all of these organizations are really friendly in terms of supporting and mentoring entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, and social entrepreneurs. So I would definitely contact them if you're interested, and also see if they can offer some support in terms of resources or maybe even funding. So growing your enterprise. Now, even if you're at a stage where you're just thinking about, your idea, these are a few areas that are going to be very, very, very important for you. So your brand. Who are you? What's your product or service? What do people know you for? So for example, in my case, people know me as someone who has a large network, a lot of expertise, and can get the job done quickly, but at the same time support the organization in learning how to do what they're trying to do. So an example of that would be just going back to my very first contract, and that's an organization that was looking for someone who had the expertise, wanted someone to turn it around quickly and provide them with the success that they were looking for. But at the same time, I was able to mentor them, create templates, and really show them how to do this type of work themselves the next time. So in case they didn't have the funding to hire someone, they were able to try it. Your niche, who are you? How do you stand out from everybody else? This is extremely important, what makes you unique. Next, marketing, who is your audience? How do you reach them? Social media could be one way, but your audience could have a very particular way of being addressed, and you want to make sure that you are very in tune with that. Networking, as Elvira mentioned, even though I am an entrepreneur, I do a lot of volunteering, and volunteering is extremely important for getting your name out there, getting to meet people, letting people know what you're capable of. A lot of my contracts have come from some of my volunteering and from meeting others. And lastly, partnerships. It's really important to work with people who you trust, who have the same values and work ethic as you. We're not in silos, so the future is really about collaboration, and I think it's really important for you to realize that we're going to need to partner with others, but make sure that those individuals are in line with what the image and the work ethic that you're trying to promote as well. Okay, and we're going to start. I'm moving as quickly as I can. I know there's a lot of information, so some of these things I'm not going to go into too much detail, and you can definitely, we can elaborate them in the question period. So if there's anything I'm missing, please feel free to ask. And going back to our poll, so the number one tool people suggested they needed was social media, and I think that that's an extremely important tool. And another great thing about it is it's practically free. So it's a great tool to leverage. You have great reach, but at the same time, it doesn't cost you a lot. So I'm going to go through these tools very quickly. The first one is contact information. I know that sounds silly, but being accessible, having a phone number that people can get through to you with, having an email that you respond to right away is extremely important. Please follow up when someone sends you a note or a request or wants to meet with you. Follow up as soon as possible, because you can potentially lose a client, and you can also gain a reputation for not getting back to people, which is not good. Social media, of course, it's a way of getting your name out there at a very low cost. Be very careful of the messaging that you put out. I know sometimes it's easy to get carried away. You might get confused between your individual profile and your business profile. Make sure that you are portraying the image that you want to portray. Your elevator speech is extremely important. You need to be able to sum up who you are, what you do, and how you can benefit someone in a matter of even 30 seconds or less, because you never know when you're going to run into your next client. Your accounting process is extremely important. I'm going to talk about it a little bit in the next slide, but make sure that you are very detailed oriented on everything that you invest in, any kind of any contracts that you've received, any monies that you're getting in. One thing about being an entrepreneur and being a successful entrepreneur is, one, not investing in things that are inflated, so things that are too expensive that you don't really need. Do you really need that iPad, or is it just a luxury item? Also, when it comes to taxes, as an entrepreneur, there are lots of perks to during tax time, but you have to be organized and have all your paper trail to keep you in line with that. Your prices for services, we talked about it already, a very important first shot at getting paid what you're worth. Research and expertise, you have to know your stuff. So if there's something you're passionate about, something you want to do, and you want people to pay you to do it, you really need to be able to meet that quality of service that's expected. And lastly, mentors. You're not alone. There's so many other people out there that can contribute to your business, giving you ideas around what you could do to maybe do things better, do things a different way. So definitely keep mentors in mind. So financing.
I'm going to just jump in here to say it's 12:43. I'm going to give you a couple more minutes to wrap up, and also want to invite people to start sending in their questions through the Q&A panel. I think we have one more polling question that's coming up next, so I'm going to put it up for people. But if we can just maybe wrap up in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, sounds good. I only have a few more slides. And again, a lot of these slides have links, so you can follow them and kind of do a little bit of research on your own. But financing is probably the #1 question I get asked when it comes to mentoring young people around or mentoring other entrepreneurs around how to get their businesses started. And there's 3 major avenues that I see. Grants, bursaries, government programs, fellowships is 1. Major lenders like the bank is 2, and friends and family is 3. I've listed some links. There's not a lot of information out there around financing in terms of grants and bursaries, so you do have to do a little digging. I would suggest you actually follow up with some of these organizations. One of the links that I've posted is the Ontario Trillium Foundation Futures Fund. That funding cycle has ended, but I would keep an eye on it. It looks very social entrepreneur friendly and could support you. Major lenders are, always an opportunity for entrepreneurs to get money from the bank, but again, it's a very difficult, so there are some hoops you have to jump through, and then the interest that you might have to pay is something to consider. My business started from a loan from my dad. So I would say friends and family are probably your biggest resource in terms of funding your business. I would definitely start with them and go from there. Just a note, this is me at tax time this year. I keep a paper trail of every single thing that I do, and I have to say that this year I was granted thousands of dollars back in taxes, and that's because I was able to submit a lot of my receipts and my expenses back to the government. So I would highly encourage you to keep track of every single dollar spent or received for your business. And the last thing I just wanted to impress upon everyone is that entrepreneurship is, it's a cycle. You will learn, you will be successful, you will fail, and all of these things are going to be very, very important in developing not only your business acumen, but also developing a little bit of expertise around what you're doing, maybe finding things that work, things that don't work. It's all a learning process. So it takes years to be successful. If you're successful right away, congratulations, but again, it's always going to be a learning process. And I know a lot of you have fears in starting your own business, so our last poll is asking you, what are some of your biggest fears in starting your own business? And I have to say that at the end of the day, again, it's a business and it's meant to make revenue. So if your business is in the red or it's costing you more than you're making, it's okay to go back and reevaluate if this is the right business model, if this is the right business product, and adjust. As an entrepreneur, I'm always reinventing myself. I have new business ideas and I found a focus. So now I'm going to actually go back and write a new business plan and start a new avenue for myself. So that's something about it being an entrepreneur. You're in a continuum and learning cycle. Now, just to end off, I have listed some examples of social enterprises that are here in Toronto or nationally across Canada. So if you want to have some kind of examples of what things are happening out there, there's a few links for you. And that's it. Sorry for going over in time. I had a lot to talk about, but please let me know if you have any questions.
We have
I'll pass it back to Elvira.
20 seconds left in for the poll, so I'm going to give people their last now 10 seconds to answer the poll and give you a chance to respond to the poll. In the meantime, again, ask people to please don't feel shy to send in your questions, and I can maybe get the ball rolling as well. But we're going to, here we go. The poll has just come in, and I'm going to show it to you in just a second. Do you want to go back to the other slide and maybe speak for 30 seconds or so about some of those examples of the social entrepreneurs?
Sure, but I can talk about the second one. I was actually I was part of a contest of young social entrepreneurs, and the Neighborhood Basketball Association won. And what they're doing is they're building community programs for at-risk youth. So that's an example of an organization that is really working to serve the individuals that are facing barriers themselves. But I'm not sure if the organization is really as much about creating revenue as it is about gaining sustainability. So I know at the beginning of our webinar we said quite a few of you are from community organizations, and I think that this is a new funding model for community organizations, is finding ways that you can become a social enterprise so you can actually sustain your organization so you don't have to depend on government grants and that type of thing. So that's definitely an opportunity for social nonprofits, and I would check out the Enterprising Nonprofits website to learn more. And I see the poll is up, so yeah, for sure. It's a great website. So what is your biggest fear in starting your own business? And the majority of you said lack of resources or support. Next, we had not having enough interest or customers. And then third, we would say we had lack of business acumen and not being able to handle demand. So in terms of lack of resources and support, be creative. Of course, follow the links that I sent you, but again, tap into your networks, tap into your friends and family, and see if you can, if they can maybe refer you to some clients or, you know, help you get started. So that's definitely an avenue to explore. And in terms of not having enough interest or customers, again, go out to your network and see what would people say about your service or your product, and maybe even approach some of your potential clients and just say, I'm not trying to sell you anything, but I'd like to know, is this a service you'd be interested in? What would make you want to hire someone like me? So there's no harm in approaching people and getting their feedback, for sure.
Thanks for that, Manira. And you know, as we're still waiting for people to write in their questions, you know, maybe the question I would have for participants is, in the beginning, most people mentioned that they are currently working for a nonprofit or community organization. Does this, in terms of their interest in participating in this webinar, is it because they're thinking about branching off and starting their own business, or is it more related to what Manira was mentioning earlier, taking some of the tools that exist within, let's say, an entrepreneur model and applying it to the community or nonprofit organization? I think it'd be really interesting to hear from some of the participants on that. As in and of itself, hearing the term sort of the business model applied for a nonprofit is somewhat counterintuitive, but I think you've done a really good job as sort of explaining, Manira, how in the end it's about sustainability, and that's the case for a community organization as well. So I think all of these things that you've talked about are really, really applicable, whether you're sort of, you know, on your own, or whether you're sort of running an organization, or an employee of an organization that we all know it's, you know, it's difficult to
And one thing I keep attention to, especially being a nonprofit, there's a lot of attention now being paid to social innovation, which sounds very much like social entrepreneurship, but I think it is actually more relevant to community organizations and nonprofits, because we are looking to diversify our funding streams, and being innovative in that is extremely important. And the government themselves, the HRSDC, it's Human Resources Skills and Development Canada, they have started paying close attention to social innovation in the community and not-for-profit sectors. And I didn't list the link for kind of their projects, but I know that they're very interested in hearing from organizations that have ideas, and I believe it's around figuring out how they can support those organizations. So whenever you hear social innovation, I would definitely, if you're looking to diversify your funding stream as a community organization, invest in learning more about that, because I think that's a growing area as well in terms of funding.
Thank you for that. And Sheena Cameron would like to know, what is the biggest challenge you have experienced being a social entrepreneur? And secondly, have you had a hard time staying true to your principles in a business model? Very good question.
These are great questions, really great questions. I can't see them, so I might need them to be repeated, but I have to say my biggest challenge being a social entrepreneur was getting that credibility. You know, it's really proving to people, because my customer base for nonprofits, and they're individuals and organizations that don't have a lot of funding in the first place, so they need to make the right decision when they're investing in a consultant. I found using the term consultant actually scared people, so I had to be a little bit careful around how I marketed myself and kind of how I described myself as well. The second challenge I faced in nonprofit or working in social enterprise is, I think when you're a business person, sometimes you are moving way faster than everybody else, and you have to really pay attention to your customer and your client, and you know, meet them at their level, because you're really helping them. So that's something I'd say, in order to maintain, you know, address these challenges, I've developed a lot of patience, and I've really learned to listen, to really hear what the issues are and address them from the core, as opposed to just expecting other people to apply a template of what I can do to, you know, what their needs are. And in terms of, I think the second question was I challenged ethically? Was that?
Have you had a hard time staying true to your principles in a business model?
No, I'd say that's why I'm in business for myself. And I've worked for other organizations. I've worked for some amazing organizations, and I've worked for other ones that I think have a lot of opportunity to become better. And I've been able to walk away from them and say, you know, at this time, we're not a fit. And because I own my own business, I have the flexibility of doing that. And I think that that's one of the greatest things about being a social entrepreneur, especially, is you feel so empowered, because you can invest in the things that you really believe in. And as I gave you that earlier example, I was able to say, absolutely not, I'm not supporting this because I don't believe in it. And that was my form of activism. So it made me feel really good about what I was doing.
Thanks. And you know what? A few more questions are coming in, so I just want to ask people if they were be okay with staying on for an extra 5 minutes. We started a couple of minutes after noon, so let's schedule to end at around 1:05, if that's okay with people. So Jane Ngui would like to know, what were those, she's asking a question about some of the organizations that you mentioned in your slides, and a few other people were also asking about whether the webinar will be available, and the answer is yes to all of those questions, so rest assured. And Jane would also like to know, how do you price a service when you are serving poor and marginalized people with limited resources? Another really great question.
So I've been there, and I think that was it. I did it for a really long time. I had customers that couldn't afford my services or couldn't afford to pay me what I needed to survive. So at the end of the day, you have to keep in mind that you're doing this for yourself. So if you lose capacity or if you can't afford to pay rent, then you're not going to be able to stay in business. So this is a difficult decision to make, but it's an important one because it's about your sustainability. And the longer you stick around, the more people you can help. But how I've addressed this, because I've been there, is in two ways. And one of that is that I did develop a pricing strategy where it was based on almost like a pay what you can strategy. And what that was is there were some organizations that actually had more funding, and I paid them I charged them maybe an above market rate, and that's really personal too. It's up to you what you want to charge for your services. The best advice I was given by one of my professors at PR school is charge what you need to survive. So if you need to survive by charging a certain amount to a certain organization that's not totally unethical and overinflated, I think that's okay, because you can balance it out by offering lower fees to other organizations, and I've absolutely done that. And I've had some organizations come to me saying, you know what, this is what we can pay you, and it was way more than I thought I could afford, or way more than I thought that they could afford. And that helped me balance it out by maybe even offering pro bono services. I've offered many pro bono services. It's just a balance. So that's one. The second thing you can do is help them fund the project. So when I say my business is consulting and project management, I've often come into organizations and supported them around how to build their funding resources, what different things they could do. If it was a grant, maybe I would help them write the grant based on the project. So that's one of the services I offered, is actually funding the project that they were, helping them to get funding for the project that they wanted to implement. So it's really about being creative. You don't necessarily have to turn people away, and if you do, sometimes it's just helpful connecting them to someone else or connecting them to resources. So at the end of the day, do what's right for your business and for you first, and you'll find a way to help everyone that you really want to help.
A couple more questions. Quel est le meilleur moyen de se forcer à faire un plan d'affaires? What is the best way to force yourself to write a business plan?
I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm actually, after the long weekend, my mom's picking me up for 2 weeks, and I'm locking myself in the basement, and I'm going to write this plan. And I'm getting out of Toronto, because otherwise I will have coffee dates all the time. So that, it's really about, it's a commitment. It's like anything else that you would commit to, whether it be school, whether it be, anything else in your life. You have to sit down and really focus and write that plan out. But some advice I would give you is do it in chunks. It's a big document. Give yourself time. If you have a goal because of a funding deadline or whatnot, that's okay. Just pace yourself. So, do your the marketing section, and then do the financial section in pieces. And in the end, the executive summary actually will write itself, because you're just picking out pieces from all the work you've already done. So my advice to you is to find a space where you can really focus, but also don't get overwhelmed. Break it up into little pieces. And if you want some support, the Canadian Youth Business Foundation has a really great template that you can follow. Or I know there are community organizations that do workshops and sessions. So you would do like an 8-week workshop, and every week you would tackle one aspect of your business plan. So there's a few different things you can do to support you in writing it.
Thank you so much. And the question came from Julie Lassonde, who says that she loves your response, and je dois m'enfermer aussi. She's also going to find a way to close herself in a space to work on her business plan. We have a question as well from Raisa Dogby, and she would like to know if it's possible to find sources of funding in Canada for international projects. So if your scope of work is international versus national or even local.
I'll be honest, I don't have expertise or a specific answer for this question, and I think if you do some research around international agencies or organizations that work internationally and approach them, that might be a good opportunity. I would also check out Ashoka Canada, because I do know they work internationally. But one piece of advice I give you just from a PR marketing perspective is partnerships. You know, if there's work you want to do internationally, find out who internationally you would work with, and find out who they're working with and what other organizations are involved in those regions or those projects as well. So it's a bit of a kind of just like chasing contacts and doing a lot of cold calling, but I think it really starts with knowing who's actually in that arena and partnering with them. I know CETA used to do a lot of things, but a lot of that has changed. And I noticed that a lot of international projects do start privately funded. So, for example, I had a colleague in the past who was opening up a school in Kenya, and what she did was she started with a fundraiser here in Canada. She raised a couple of $1,000s, and then she was able to get another organization, I believe it was a private organization, to match that funding, and it just started to snowball and it grew. So again, be very innovative in your ideas and you're creative in your ideas, but reach out and see who you can partner with to work internationally. That's what I would suggest, but I'm not an expert in that area.
Great advice. Great advice. I'm going to give the last question to Dafina, because we also have a couple of more things to do before we wrap up. And Dafina would like to know, or she says, I am currently in the process of building a not-for-profit organization, and my interest in this webinar comes from the fact that I'm dedicating myself full-time to this project. I'm in the process of finding ways to get funding for future projects, as well as trying to make an income. My question is, what is the best advice someone has given you, and what advice would you give to me regarding this? So she's in the
as working full-time on this. You know what? I think the great thing about committing to something full-time is you can put all your ideas and your energy behind it. But the challenge is that, you know, you might have to pay rent or you might have to eat. So my suggestion to you is to find a balance. Make sure that you do have some type of income, whether it's, you know, even having borrowed some money from family or friends, or a part-time job, whatever it is, just to keep you going. I think one of the stressors of being an entrepreneur is the financial stress, and it's worrisome because not only are you trying to fund projects, but you're trying to maintain your lifestyle so you can actually continue. So that's what I would suggest to you. In terms of, sorry, I just got distracted. Can you give me the question one more time?
Yeah, I think you addressed the question. Dafina, thanks for joining us today. I've met Dafina before, so I'm excited that she was able to join us in this webinar. And she's starting up her own community organization, nonprofit organization, and she really is passionate about it and would like to dedicating her time to this. And so,
what is it? What would the services be?
Yes, Dafina, did you want to respond to that? I'll let you. I don't want to speak for her, so I'll let her do that. But yes, go ahead. You can.
And maybe while she's answering that question, I can just quickly say that in terms of my experience, so you know, the work that I was doing, a lot of it was freelance. So I was taking on little projects here and there as well to keep me going. And I'm doing that even now as I'm kind of sitting down to dedicate a few weeks to my business plan, and I won't have revenue coming in during that time. I've been taking on just little projects and little freelance projects to build a bit of a cushion to keep me going. But if there's one thing I can really impress upon anyone starting a business is take care of yourself. You cannot run your business if you are burnt out, or if you don't have the capacity, if you run out of money, or if you just aren't healthy. Make sure you eat and drink lots of water. I know it gets really busy, but at the end of the day, you're your own boss. So You can provide yourself some sick leave if you need to, but we want to make sure that you don't get there. We want to make sure that you're healthy and you're able to really exude that enthusiasm that's going to encourage your clients to hire you.
That's a very good point, and just to respond to your previous question, it is her organization is the Roma Community Centre of Montreal, which is she's starting up. We don't really have any more time, unfortunately. It's 1:07, and I'm really happy to see that people are so enthusiastic about the topic, and we're actively participating. I'm very, very happy that you accepted to do a presentation on this topic, Munira, and share all of your knowledge and expertise. I do want to just let everyone know again that the webinar recording will be made available to everyone who participated today, as well as people who registered and were unable to participate, and invite you, if you haven't already, to have a look at the Girls Action Foundation website and find out more information about what we do. We have other webinars that we do webinars throughout the year. That's the spot where we announce the upcoming ones. If you are not yet a Facebook fan, please join. Please like our page. You could also follow us on Twitter. If you have any specific questions, you can definitely feel free to send me an email, elvira@girlsactionfoundation.ca. I'm also going to put your email back on the screen as you shared it with everyone. Here's your Twitter handle, and you have your own Facebook page as well as LinkedIn account. So all of this will be available once you have a link to the webinar recording. So that's it. I wanted to see if you had any closing words before we end today's session.
I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for having me. And again, my story is completely unique, and your story will be unique as well. So best of luck, and hang in there.